Okay, so a warm welcome everyone to this Oracle Engineering Forum 2021 related to Oracle Database. My name is Vincenzo Matteo. I'm Oracle BDM Director for EMEA. ODA is Oracle Database Appliance, as you may imagine, and I have the pleasure today to have with me Subhan Raghunathan, Vice President of Product Management, and Paul Tien and Carlos Ortiz, ODA Product Manager. And we will go with their help through the innovations and all the benefits that Oracle Database Appliance is delivering to our customers. And before doing that, let me have a briefly description of the agenda, but also share some logistics. So you have the question and answer tab. So feel free to submit any questions that you may have in mind. We will make our best to answer directly in the tab or at the end of the event, where you have also the possibility to ask live questions. The webinar will be recorded and also will be available in the same page where you have registered yourself for attending in a few days from now. So the agenda is very straightforward, to the point that you already seen while you registered. So it's my welcome. The part related to the Oracle Database Technology Directions will be Subhan, that will kindly share those directions, and this is very key for everyone. The product news and the news features in the Oracle Database Appliance will follow, and then some demos and some best practice that we would like to share with you in order to help you in successful implement this fantastic solution that we have in the market. And we will finish with a live demo on patching to the latest release that we just introduced at the beginning of September. Now, there are a lot of topics, so I don't want to spend too much time on this part, but I would like to have you all in sync on a basic concept that is well known for the ones that have already adopted and using Oracle Database Appliance. The Oracle Database Appliance is all you need to run your Oracle database, and it's a complete solution based on server, storage, software, networking, and more important, management software. So it's the simplest and most affordable solution to run the Oracle database and the related applications. But on top of that, it is engineered with Oracle Database. So there are net new features that our software engineers and hardware engineers have developed in order to offer to our customers unique benefits that are not available in any other alternative that is available in the market except our engineered system. So the main point I would like to make in this welcome is a big thank you to our customers and to our partners, because Oracle Database Appliance is a growing product for Oracle, and this is because of you that are appreciating our innovations, and is for us across EMEA the 4th consecutive quarters that we are achieving this great result despite the overall situation. So really big thank you for your choice. And this forum is also a kind of evidence that we would listen to you, we would hear to you, we would want to be in touch with you on a regular basis with the technology direction and sharing best practice. You know, Oracle Database Appliance main value is that is a simple, optimized, and affordable solution. But today we will go through the more technical details, and I would like you to appreciate those key values inside the technology. So really understand why so many customers so many use cases, they are choosing ODA because it's simple, is engineered with Oracle database, it's optimized to run also the application on top, and is affordable. So it's not just a marketing, but it's something that has an evidence in the technology that is behind Oracle Database Appliance. And you know, from the latest release that we introduced in Oracle Database Appliance, you have now the deployment options for your Oracle database and application. You can deploy it bare metal, Standard Edition, Enterprise Edition, but you can deploy also in the KVM database system, so deploy your database in a virtualized environment and getting all the benefits of the automation of the Oracle Database Appliance. And on top of that, you can also run your application. And we are seeing many also independent software vendor embracing the Oracle Database Appliance to certify and support their application on Oracle Database Appliance. And this will give you as customer even more benefits, having more companies developing software that is supported by Oracle Database Appliance. So with that said, I kindly ask someone to give us the latest on the technology direction about ODA. So thank you, Subban.
Thank you, Vincenzo. Welcome, everybody. It is my great pleasure to be here in this infrastructure modernization forum for EMEA. And like Vincenzo said, I would like to first start with a big thank you to all of our customers and partners who have been invaluable for us in terms of growing the business. As Vincenzo mentioned, we have been on this path of innovations now for a very long time. And it is great that we recently just celebrated the 10th year birthday of the Oracle Database Appliance. The product has been extremely successful in the marketplace, or mainly to customers like you and partners like you. And this is a journey that we are on in terms of innovations, to be continuing to innovate at the infrastructure layer, at the operating system layer, as well as the database layers. Okay, I hope all of you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
So like I mentioned, we just celebrated our 10th year anniversary, and I am very honored and proud to be the VP of Product Management for the Oracle Database Appliance. And my team and I, we manage the on-premises deployments of the Oracle Database Appliance, setting directions and looking at what the technology directions are. Now, overall, within Oracle, we have, okay, thank you. I was just looking at, we've been innovating across the layers. And what is the focus of all of this innovation can be broadly classified into 4 categories. The first category is, of course, performance. We want to be able to continue to improve your ability to manage the immense amount of data that is coming into your data centers and the amount of information that is contained in that data. And if you are able to extract that information and present it in a very valuable manner, that is going to be invaluable for your business. The second aspect of this is in terms of availability and reliability, and that spans multiple domains within the system. So whether it is looking at reliability that is built into the hardware layers, or whether it is higher availability solutions that can be built either by looking at what is the base infrastructure that is going to deliver that high availability, or a partnership of the deployment model with the cloud. So you're deploying some of your workloads on premises and some other workloads that are going to go into the cloud, and be able to achieve a fast connectivity between on-premises and cloud is going to aid overall with this entire data management and high availability solutions. The next aspect of this is security. As all of you know, in today's world, cybercrime is becoming the latest form of warfare, whether it is between nation states or between criminals trying to monetize the data that is present and available within your enterprise to either cause destruction or to aid some other competitive approach on this. So our businesses and our nations are at threat from cybercrime. We believe as the custodians of that data, whether it is in the form of delivering software like Oracle Database that you run to manage this data, or whether it is in the cloud where you entrust us with your data, it is our responsibility to be part of the overall security conversation with our customers. And so security is a big area where we are innovating majorly and looking at ways by which we can go deeper in terms of the defense in depth strategy by deploying security elements within the hardware, firmware, operating system, hypervisor, and of course, Oracle Database and any other applications that Oracle owns. So security is a very big push for Oracle. Last but not the least is overall management. Now, whether this is management at the infrastructure layer, management of the overall data life cycle, being able to look at your overall estate in a holistic manner, to be able to integrate and provide you with as much of the integration that delivers a single pane of glass management are all aspects that we're looking at. Let me give you a very trivial example on this management and innovations that's going on that management front. Many of us are using multiple electronic devices on a day-to-day basis, whether it is for work or pleasure or any even transportation, is go from point A to point B. We are in constant touch with technology. When something breaks, the error message that that device needs to put out needs to be comprehensible by human beings and be able to take corrective action in a very quick manner. One of the latest initiatives that we have ongoing with our product line right now is to simplify error messages and to give very actionable results to the user to say, hey, this is the error, do this to fix this particular error. So it's a very trivial example, but it aids a lot, whether it is in dev test or in actually making sure that your production environment is running in a stable manner and in a reliable fashion. So all of these areas are places that we are innovating, not just looking at performance in isolation. Of course, performance is a big play on this. Vincenzo already mentioned around the overall vision for Oracle Database Appliance. This has pretty much remained unchanged over the last 10 years plus of the existence of the Oracle Database Appliance. It is our endeavor to continue to fine-tune this vision of ours and deliver to this vision, keeping things simple, being able to automate as much of the management lifecycle of the system, being able to order it in a simple manner, being able to install it, being able to deploy it, and perform all of this lifecycle management in a simple manner is a key goal for us. And we've been continuing on this journey. And recently, we've increased the focus on this entire simplicity aspect of it. The affordability of Oracle Database Appliance is legendary because of the way we have priced it, as well as what are the options that are available to you in terms of sizing the system to the appropriate deployment model that you choose, and whether it is in dev test or in full production, as well as providing you with multiple availability options that keep the system entirely affordable, not only looking at it from a hardware acquisition cost, but looking at it from a software acquisition cost by incorporating things like capacity on demand licensing, and be able to perform all of the normal database activities, database management activities in the most simple manner, thereby reducing not only CapEx, but also OpEx. The optimizations for database, we will continue to do that. I think many of you take advantage of these already today, but we are looking at ways by which we can continue to optimize the overall functionality of the system for Oracle Database. And the security, like I mentioned earlier in my initial talk, is to provide that end-to-end security by following this defense in depth philosophy. To highlight a point here, Oracle owns the design of these servers. These are Oracle design servers specifically for the Oracle Database Appliance, as well as other engineered systems that we build. The idea in doing that is to maintain full control of the design as well as the supply chain, and be able to secure the system from an hardware all the way up to the software layers of that system. The advantage that you get as a customer on this entire investments that we make is to ensure that as we design the system to be specific for Oracle Database, it is delivering to you an accelerated time to value. It reduces your risk because we remove the guessing game from which infrastructure to choose for what and how to size it. Because we understand the hardware and as well as the software, we are keeping all of these together, continuing down that affordable strategy. And I think the most important aspect of having an engineered system that is specifically designed for Oracle Database, with Oracle owning the hardware, the operating system, the hypervisor, as well as the database, is that you have one hand to shake, which is Oracle. You have a problem, you call one vendor, and that one vendor is responsible for fixing that entire solution, as opposed to running around between multiple suppliers. And in the modern day aspects of cloud, we want to make sure that your path to the cloud, whether you're doing dev test in the cloud, production on premises, or whether you want to burst to the cloud, or whether you want to just back up to the cloud, or have disaster recovery in the cloud, multiple solutions are being made available to you. And with the tight integration with the appliance, making sure that your path to the cloud will be highly successful. I mentioned that we just celebrated the 10th birthday of the Oracle Database Appliance. The Oracle Database Appliance, starting from the V1 that we released in September 2011, going up to the X8, has seen a continuous growth in terms of performance and capabilities. I know many of you have probably seen some of the recent news coming out from Oracle with the release of the Exadata X9 generation, and are probably wondering as to when is the Oracle Database Appliance X9 generation going to be released. It is going to be very soon. I think all of us are facing the consequences of the disruptions in the supply chain worldwide, whether it is for consumer products, enterprise products, etc. This Oracle has been impacted by this, and we do not want to be in a situation where we promise and release a product and we are unable to deliver that product to you. So in order to keep the supply chain and waiting for things to come through so that we are able to deliver promised product, we are holding back on the release. The product is actually ready. We have completed the software and hardware integration. We're going through our final checks on the quality assurance cycles. And while we wait for the supply chains and the lines to open up, we are holding back on the release of this, but we are on the cusp of this release. And we look forward to announcing that in the next few months from now. And again, this will not be a surprise to you that obviously we will have better capabilities within the system, and has been our historical tradition so far, that the software releases that come with the release of that product are also going to be backward compatible with several generations of the Oracle Database Appliance. And therefore, your investments to date are definitely going to be protected as you invest and grow your business along with the Oracle Database Appliance. This is just a quick recap on where we are on the on the Oracle Database Appliance X8 generation. I think many of you are very familiar with it. I just wanted to bring this up here for completeness. And my team is joining me today to take you through this journey of drilling down into all of these aspects. But I just wanted to touch base on the key value propositions and what are we delivering on this front. Paul and Carlos will take you through a deep dive on this. But really speaking, looking at the simplistic aspect of the appliance, starting with the fact that you have 3 SKUs, if you may, of the product line: a small, a medium, and the high availability appliance, making sure that starting from when you think about what is the product that you need to order, it is going to be simple for you to size it, be able to determine, yes, that is the product that I want to get, and order that. And then when we ship it to you, it comes as a full bundle ready to be installed. And all of the parameters that are required for the settings are already incorporated into the appliance. So you'll be able to stand up the appliance and start running real application clusters and set up a real application cluster in a matter of a few hours, as opposed to days that might be in the case if you were to do it yourself. So quick installation, setup, being able to manage this without any specialized skills, and be able to upgrade the software entirely, not just the firmware or not just the operating system, be able to apply it across the stack, and the simplified support. The product itself is optimized for Oracle Database. You can run multiple different versions of the Oracle Database, and everything you need for a database solution is available in the form of this single appliance. And we back this up with best practices and automation to help you reliably maintain and manage that particular solution, giving you the fastest return on your capital investment while delivering the highest levels of efficiency and the lowest cost when you are running the appliance, thereby increasing the overall return on investment. The affordability, again, comes down to a complete engineered system, which has got storage and compute integrated directly into the system without you having to invest in external infrastructure like storage area networks or network attached storage, or being able to just stand up that infrastructure itself in a quick manner is part of the affordability equation. We combine that with capacity on demand Oracle software licensing, which reduces your CapEx even more. And then, of course, the ongoing reduction in operational expenses because of the automation that's present in the system continues to make the system be extremely affordable. On the security front, we are focusing entirely on this defense in depth. So we want to make sure that the system is security optimized. The focus is always on security, being able to deliver to you a system that you can trust from a trusted supplier, and we will harden the equipment at each and every layer and give you the ability to remain confident in the overall security profile of your data itself. And finally, be able to deliver to you an appliance where you can keep the application tier very close to the database tier, so close that it can actually run on the same system. Vincenzo talked about the kernel virtualization module or KVM that we introduced on the Oracle Database Appliance with the 19.9 release and then extended into the 19.10. And we are continuing to deliver improvements on the KVM. And the idea over here is that you will be able to run your applications as well as different versions of the database directly on the system while delivering the maximum performance in terms of connectivity between your applications tier and the database tier. And then also with delivering the ability for you to run different versions of Oracle Database in different database virtual machines that can then interact with applications that have been certified only with a certain version of the database. We recently also announced Oracle Database 21C, which is an innovation release. And in very soon, you will be able to, we will be releasing a version of Oracle Database Appliance software that will allow you to start taking the advantages of Oracle Database 21C in a development and test environment. Please note that Oracle Database 21C is an innovation release. It's got a lot of new features that you can develop with. The most important one of those is this aspect of a converged database, whereby you can actually use multiple different data types that are all converged inside the Oracle database, and you can use standard SQL kind of operators to be able to access different data types, and you can do so all of that on the Oracle Database Appliance itself. Anyways, with this introduction and the past innovations that we've been implementing on the system, combined with all of the innovations that we are doing with Oracle Database on your left-hand side. We bring all of those together with the Oracle Database Appliance so you can get the maximum benefit of your investment. To take you through this journey even further, I now invite Carlos, my colleague, to take us into the respective details. Thank you, Carlos. Over to you.
So I'm going to be covering on this next section some product news, new features, tell you what is the latest. And so this is a busy slide, but this shows what we've done in the past almost 2 years, right? These are the different releases that we have provided, and there is a lot of information. So I'm going to segment it to make it easier. The first thing to review is going to be, what did we just release in September, right? These are the items that we released. So in the next slides, I'm going to give you some information as to what these items means here. And then I'll cover the rest in broad categories so you can just have an idea of what is our goal, what we've been doing, right? So on 1912, 1912 was just released earlier this month, well, in September, and it includes the July 2021 release updates. Remember that we provide clones, so you can easily provision databases, patch databases, and the ones that are covered on the July 2021 are the 12.1, 12.2, and 1911, right? The 21.3 is provided, but notice that it's only in DB systems, which is the KVM for Oracle Database. Now, I want to point out that 1912 is not available for the Oracle VM platform. The next and last release is going to be the 1913, which is our next release in this month, most likely in the November timeframe, right? So customers can continue to do out-of-cycle patching manually, right, in the meantime. And so we'll give you more details when we release 1913, right? So we now have support for the Oracle Database 21C. And as I mentioned, right, it is only in a DB system and database, which is the database KVM. And the reason, right, is that it is an innovation release. It comes with a 2 years of premium support, right? So not many customers are going to be going through this. So this innovation release will be supported in DB systems, but the long-term releases, right, which is the one after this, you're going to be able to do in bare metal or DB system, right? It's and just a quick note. Obviously, when you want to patch a DB system, the bare metal has to be patched before, okay? And we have a section at the end where we're going to show you patching to 1912, and you're going to see, right, that you're going to need to update the repository with the DBVM template, right? DBVM is the same as a DB system, and the 21 clones, 21C clones. Okay, and upgrading an Oracle database from 1910 or 1911 to a 21.3 is not supported yet. So the other supporting 1912 is that you can now patch a DB system. The previous 1910, 1911, that was not possible, but now is fully supported, right? You can do it on CLI or BUI, browser user interface. And it patches both the DB system as well as the database, right? And so the first releases that we support were 1910 and 1911. Obviously, you can patch those to 1912. There were several other enhancements that we had, right? It's since we released the Oracle Linux 7, we didn't have the support for STIG. And that's the security technical implementation guides. So that is now supported with 1912, right? NUMA, which is non-uniform memory access, it's also supported for ODA. This feature, right, allows us to manage better the memory and the CPU, and it'll just result in better efficiencies and in some cases, production gains, performance gains, right? It's the other one is that customers who had TDE enabled databases couldn't register with the Oracle Database Appliance. That is now supported. Take a look at the documentation for details, right? It's the next one is optimizing Oracle ASM disk group rebalance operations. There are many situations in which the system will need to rebalance data between disks, and the way that the Oracle Database Appliance is now going to do it is in an automatic way, right? It will be monitoring the usage of the system, and if there is room to speed it up, it will automatically do so, right? It's take a look at the details in the documentation as well. It is a unique feature, right, that the Oracle Database Appliance will support. Diagnostics data collection using the buoy. I have a screenshot on this. I'm going to show you the details. Support for Oracle Enterprise Manager plugin. We always have this, but with every release, we may include new support. So there are some new features on this. And access the Oracle Database Appliance documentation FAQ unblocked from the browser. So let me show you that as well, what we mean, right? It's on this slide right here. So in the circle, in the red circle, you can see here, actions, collect diagnostics. Sometimes technical support will tell you, hey, you gotta send me the logs, you gotta go fish for the logs, right? Go specific files, so then attach them to the ESR. Now, if there is a failure for whatever reason, right, you can just go to the actions, collect diagnostics. And our software developers have designed this in a way that they understand what the failure was. They know which are the logs that they want to pull out and to look at, right? So by collecting the diagnostics for these items that failed, right? Then you go to the diagnostics tab that you see on the upper right-hand side here, right? And you're going to be able to just download the file and attach it to the ESR, to the service request. Much easier, much simpler, right? The other one is the other tab that is new. You can see on the upper side here in greenish, it says resources. The documentation is now included with the appliance, but you also have an opportunity to go take a look at the blogs, right? Or the FAQ. There's more FAQs are going to be integrated with the documentation, and through this tab, you're going to be able to access those frequently asked questions. Right. And the last item that I want to point out is this item here that you see, help, right, with a question mark. Depending on what section you are in the browser user interface, you can always click it and it will give you in context information, meaning that whatever it is that you're looking at, if it is a CPU pool or database system, whatever, you click on help, it will immediately just bring up those items, right? So those are quick changes that will help in the overall serviceability of the unit, right? For you to be able to access all that information quickly, right? So there is a lot of items here. So I'm going to show you in about 3 different categories the rest of the items. One is the KVM support. I mean, it's we have many customers who are running the applications alongside the database, right? For better efficiencies, which can be even less expensive system, right? To provide the full solution. So since 1909, we've released the KVM for applications. The 1910 was for databases. The last 2 releases were enhancements for that KVM. And now with 1912, right, it's fully supported. There are some additional fixes, enhancements that may come in the future one, but it's now released, right, fully released to run your applications, and also the databases in a KVM, right, if so desired, to to better control licensing using hard partitioning with KVM. Okay. Another one is our value proposition, as Subhan mentioned, right? Is optimization, simple to use, but also security, right? It's and here what I just wanted to show you throughout the last almost 2 years, right? It's the items that we have released, right? It's to support this value proposition. In green, I just put in the items that give you the security. I put in the patches in here because we provide security patches for the Oracle database, for the operating system, and even for our Oracle Database Appliance software, right? All integrated in these patches that we deliver to you. But we're also, right, delivering some features such as you are now able to create databases that have that are TD enabled. We provided these audit records, and there is a new security tab, right, which will continue to enhance, adding new capabilities. FIPS 140 compliance, support for adaptive classification and reduction, so that when you send your data, all your secure data is masked or hidden, right? So you don't expose any sensitive information, right? And then in yellow, you just see overall features that we've done to improve the optimization and simplicity, right? It's delivering from CHA, the standardization high availability, when the 19C didn't support rack, right? To simplifying configurations such as data guard integration, APIs, for you to be able to just integrate with your applications, CPU pools to more efficiently manage and provide a more efficient way to run your applications, right? Your databases, etc. Those are the overall features that we've delivered, and we will continue, right? It's and the last slide in this section is that we want to, right? We want to improve and maintain a high serviceability focus, right? It's when you operate the unit, if that is reliable, that is easy to use, and when you communicate with the support, right, that you've got the information that you need to provide. And it all started with the integration of Oracle Autonomous Health Framework that we introduced in 18.8. But as you can see throughout the years, right, we implement features that just make it easier to use, right? I want to highlight here the integrated DBSAT reporting. Yes, you can run this database security, right? And reporting. You can run it now from the Oracle Database Appliance, and we've released an out-of-place patching model, and it was with in the June release, and this is already having some good effects, right, in overall serviceability, and etc. So I guess let us know, talk to the account team. You have any questions, take a look at the documentation, but this is the overall plan that we are doing with our software releases, and we'll continue to enhance it to continue to improve on the value proposition. And so on the next section, I want to pass it on to Paul. Paul and I are going to be collaborating on this. We have some demos and videos that I'll be running, and so we're going to show you here how to set up a highly available database systems. But Paul, go ahead.
Thanks, Carlos, and welcome everyone here. This next topic, I think, is it's also one of the major selling point for many of our customers. Is in case you don't know, vast majority of our ODA sales are HA models, and so as you know, this product was originally designed to be rack in a box, real application cluster in a box, right, as a HA system. The single node system came later. The idea was that we're going to make real application cluster very simple for our customers. if you are a DBA or even a system admin, in the old days, if you want to try to set up a cluster database system, it's very complicated, right? You have to have shared storage, you have all kinds of networking. And when I first started at Oracle, I tried to do this manually, right? It took me, a couple of weeks to set it up, right? And it's very complicated, software, hardware, you have switches, you have shared storage. So our goal is to make this very simple for our customers, right? The value proposition being simple, optimized, and affordable. And we're going to have a demo to show you very quickly that we can do this now in less than 2 hours, right? Which is very, very valuable for many, many of our customers, right? That require high availability for their databases, right? But not just the software, right? We also, of course, have the fully redundant hardware, everything, we have at least two of everything, right? Whether it's power supply, fans, network cards, or network ports. And then, of course, on top of that, we have our automatic storage management that protect the data, right? So you can either double mirroring or triple mirroring, and that's all automatically set up for our customers, right? So things such as multi-path, right? If you have an HBA that failed, it's not going to take the system down, right? As a matter of fact, we used to have a demo, and we can still do it now, is that you can unplug your power cable, unplug the network cable, and pop 2-3 disk drives out, right? And the system will keep going, right? So that's very valuable to our customers, right? That absolutely high availability. So in the next couple of demos, Carlos and will show you how we can set up the rack with ODA in less than 2 hours. And then with the recent introduction of the integrated data guard, we can do data guard very quickly too, right? Just a push button, right? Once you've answered some questions, then you can just have one command and set up the data guard between two ODAs. So many of you know that we have this concept called maximum available architecture for Oracle. And that's really about having real application clusters and our data guard features integrated into an architecture. And if you look at ODA platform, we really have all that in place already, right? The rack we can do in less than 2 hours. And then now with the integrated data guard, we can implement data guard very quickly too, right? That's a kind of the building blocks for MAA. So it's really a very nice platform if you want to design your highly available infrastructure, right? Not just for local failover, but also for disaster recovery. So we'll show you these two with our recorded demo. So I guess we can get started, Carlos, with our video.
Okay, so yeah, let's go to the demo. And as you can see in the illustration, there is connectivity between the compute nodes, and there is also connectivity with the disk shelf, right? So we're gonna start with the assumption that you already went through the documentation and did all the cabling, right? It's the first step is gonna be to set up the island, right? So refer to the user guide. This is a task that just is under 5 minutes, right? You need to assign your IP addresses to the island. We didn't do that in the demo, right? Because it was a system that was already set up, right, for the island. But it takes about less than 5 minutes. And then we're going to verify the storage cabling, right? Make sure that all the connections to the storage are correct, right? It's a simple command that we've designed to just help you do this, right? After that, you verify the interconnect, which is right here, these two lines between the servers, and refer to the user guide because it varies. It depends per the model number. We ran this on an X5, and at the time we were using InfiniBand. So we're not going to show you that because we don't want to confuse you, right? The later models use 25 gigabit Ethernet, and the commands are different. But it also takes under 2 minutes, right? Once you do that, you have to run configure firstnet. What it does is you assign the network IP so that the nodes are in the network and you can connect to them, right? And the last step is going to be just creating the appliance and this is setting up everything. So you can just have a rack system, right? And
Yeah.
in this case, it took, yeah, Paul, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, one thing we have in the documentation is a checklist, right? So you have to go through that to make sure you have all the IP addresses assigned to the system already, right? Whether it's a VIP or scan. So that needs to be all pre-allocated by the network team, so that you're ready to do the setup. And configure first step basically just put the ODA onto the network. But you want to make sure you have all the checklist items ready, so that it doesn't waste time, right? So you want to have all the IP addresses. Yeah.
Yep, that's a good point, right? Review that checklist, get all the information that you're gonna need ahead of time, right? It's so overall, right, is under 2 hours to set it up, and that's what we're gonna show you next, right? It's so like here, right? This is already connecting to the island, right? You're gonna need to give it your IP address to each node, but here I'm connecting to the first node, right? And once the ILOM is a separate service processor within the Oracle Database Appliance that allows you to just run it and monitor, control the system, power it off remotely, right? It's this is separate from the regular processors in the appliance. And so right here, remote console, you're gonna launch that. And when it comes up, right now we are accessing the appliance here. And as I mentioned, this is already assumed, right? It's all the ILOM is configured. So obviously the next step is gonna configure the networking for the appliance, configure first net. Here we just pick the default values, but it depends on your configuration, right? What you wanna do. Enter the IP address, give it a net mask, the gateway, and within a couple of minutes, right, it'll just set up the network. And here, right, it's done. You're ready to just connect to the appliance. But before you do that, remember that you're gonna do the other node. So here I'm logging into the other node. I'm not gonna run through the same steps you already saw, right? But I just wanna show you that you see the information here for the second node, and you would just launch the console again to do the configure first net, right? Once you configure the first net, then you need to connect to the systems using that IP address that you assign, right? SSH root at that IP address, and then put in the default password. In the documentation, you'll see the default password, right? And so here, let me maximize this. So here I'm already connected, right? You can see at the top that there's 2 tabs. Right now, the second one is selected. So these are the 2 nodes that I have, right? The left is the first node, the right is the second node. And we have a command, right, to just verify that the cabling is okay, right? You can see here, Aura CLI validate storage topology. So this is checking that all the cabling is okay for the storage. And you can see here the results, right? You want to see success for every single one, and this was the node 0, right? So now we go to the right tab and run the same command. Make sure that from that second node, everything as well is success, right? It's and so that was the cable. And I mentioned the networking. I didn't show it here, but take a look at the documentation, how to run it for the newer systems. Okay, and then what we're gonna do once, right, it's you verify that everything is okay on the cabling, then we just go and create the appliance, right? So here I'm logging into the first node, right? You just need to do it once, set up the password, right, for your new system in the GUI, right? And the password is changed, log in, right? Then you're gonna get to the screen where, okay, we create the appliance. And there is a set of information that needs to be entered, right? The first portion is going to be, okay, what is the system information? And on this one, by the way, we are showing you 1910 release. The 1912 has a couple of other values, right? But you'll notice that when you look at your system. But here you just provide this information. This is the system name, domain name, the region, give it a DNS and NTP server. Right here, you get to specify if you want the default values. Most customers do that, right, on redundancy and data storage percentage. Then you're going to enter a system password. The next section is the network information, right? It's so here is where you're going to go through that checklist that Paul mentioned. Gather all these values, right? You're going to need an IP address for well, the IP address for each node is already done, but you're going to need some clustering and virtual IP addresses, right, for the cluster. The ILOM once it's set up here, it just becomes optional, right? You just set up the networking, give it the values. In the next section, right, there is a user and group selection that many customers just leave as the default, right? And then finally is providing the database information, right? Here you need to just select the values of what database you want to create. Okay, so we're gonna quickly do that. Right, it's you give it a name if you want a pluggable database, type of deployment, the shape. So the storage on which you want it, ASM and ACFS, right? So you give it all these values, put in the password, and then at the bottom, you can see save the configuration. You can always click that because it will just save all these values that you enter in a JSON format. So that if you need to run it again or run it in another system, you have all that information. You don't need to enter that again, right? It'll just load it automatically. And once we click submit, right? So it'll create a job ID and you can just go there and you can see immediately the tasks that were done. And now it's just extracting the GI clone. For us, it took about, in this configuration, about an hour and 45 minutes later, right? It's, to do this. And if you go back to the task, now you can see that you have 16 pages of tasks that the Oracle Database Appliance software run to set up the HA configuration, the cluster, right? It's and
So
here's
yeah. So I was going to say, so this is a very powerful screen to show you all the automation, the orchestration that we do. If you didn't have Oracle Database Appliance, you have to do this all manually, these 16 pages of tasks, right? I think you're going to show them some of the tasks, right?
Yes, right. And Paul, you also tried to set up an HA configuration before, right? A rack system. Right. It's not easy.
Yeah, it's not
right?
trivial. Yes, definitely.
So, and I mean, here's just a quick view of all the different tasks, right? The Oracle Database Appliance software to it runs, right, to set up the HA, right? And so here we just went back to the GUI, so you can just see your platform is an X5-2-A. Everything is already set up for you. At the bottom, you can see the different disk groups that it created. So, and now going to, right, that's the 5-2, but then going to the network, you can see your nodes 0 and node 1, all the networking setup automatically, right, with those values that you enter. So it's straightforward, simple, and I just want to close this section with this slide again, right, that you can have a rack system in under 10 hours, right? A 2-node rack system. So it's so that's the rack. Let me go back to this demo here. Now, the other component that Paul was talking to you about was integrated data guard. Right, this we've integrated the capability to set up data guard between two Oracle database appliances in a very simple way, right? I mean, every time that I put this in front of customers and that they have done the data guard setup before, they're impressed with how simple it is. And I'm going to show you right in the demo. But if you look on the upper right-hand side here at this illustration, so we have the primary Oracle Database Appliance and the standby on the right-hand side, right? So we have a database that we need to get to the standby. At the beginning of, or when we first released it, right, you had to do this, well, you still have to do this backup, but you could only do it to the external FRA or on NFS or to the Oracle Object Store, right? And then once you put it there, then you need to restore to the standby system. And so then we could set up data guard. So we've added this line here in the middle, right? That says backup to target Aura using ACFS, NFS, and restore directly from the system. So I'm gonna show you this one right here in the middle, right? You set up an NFS share on the standby, you move the data directly from the primary to the standby system, and then you restore, right, from this standby to create your standby database. And then after that, we're gonna run configure data guard, right? At the bottom of the screen, you can see here the configure data guard command, the set of data that we need to enter, some of the data here that if you just leave as default, if it works for you, then you don't need to make any modifications. And that's all that you need to do, right? The Oracle Database Appliance will just work on setting up whatever needs to be set up, right, to establish that data guard configuration between the two systems.
Yeah, one thing I want to add is that many of our high-end customers all set up their database environment like this because you know, when you have a rack, your data is protected locally, and but if you really value high availability, you always want to have a second copy of database in a standby location. So in case anything happened to your primary data center, that you can fail over to the standby. So that's the value of protecting the database in a remote location or for disaster purposes, right? So because you always have two copies of the database. So it's really important for customers that require high availability. And with the ODA integrated data guard, we make that process very simple. And we'll show you through the video. Yes.
Thank you, Paul. And at the bottom left, you can see here integrated data guard operations. So once the data guard is set up, you can switch the role between the primary and the standby. If you want to fail over from the primary and have your standby become the primary as well, right? To do some because the primary failed, for example, right? There is other functions such as reinstating that failed primary database, or if you want to migrate to a newer Oracle Database Appliance system and retire the old one, right? You can use it for all of this. I'm going to show you only the first one, switching roles between the primary and the standby, right, as part of the demo. But if you're interested, we have other videos where we go over the full functionality, right? So we'll do that next, and let me open the data guard. And okay, at the top of the tab, you can see this tab here. This is my primary system. On the right tab, right here is the target system. So right now we're in the primary, and remember that we're gonna back up directly from the primary to the standby system, right? It's so here I'm making just call it backup location, right? A directory in the system, and then I'm gonna mount, right? From that, you can see from the target system, I'm gonna mount that directory, the backup location, right, to this system. And so that is done. So next step is gonna be, well, just make sure, right, that it's already mounted. You can see there that is mounted. And then, right? In the way that the backup works in the Oracle Database Appliance, we first create a backup configuration, right? We are naming it NFS backup. It's going to be NFS type, and right, it's going to be in this location, the backup location, and the retention period, right, is 1 week. So you create, right, you create the backup configuration. This is success is done, right? So the next step, and again, the way it works in the Oracle Database Appliance is that if I have a database, right? So it says, I'm going to modify the database. The name is DB5, that's my database. And what it's doing is attaching or linking this backup configuration, NFS backup. Okay, so I'm doing that and just check the status to make sure that it was successful. And it's done, right? It's and so the next step is, okay, now let's create a backup. We have a very small database to make it easier and faster to run this, right? So we create a backup for our database DB5. We want it to be a regular level 0 backup, and this KA is we want to keep the archives, right? These instructions are in the documentation, right? You can just follow there. And so describe the job and our backup is done. And obviously we sped up this video, so this is much faster. So once the backup is done, right? Like here, notice that I changed to the right-hand side. So I'm on the target system. So I went to that backup location in that target system to see if the backup is already here. Right, so you can see here that this is the directory structure of that backup, and it will just continue growing as more data is added. Right, it's now I came back to the first system. Right, it's because we're gonna list. We need the backup report. Right, so here I'm listing the backup reports. The very last one, DB5, is the one that I ran. And I need the ID, which is the first set of numbers, right, from here. Because the next step is we're going to describe that backup report. This is the ID that I mentioned, but we are redirecting, right, to be safe in the temporary file or directory with this name. This is the in a JSON format, right? So we are in essence, exporting this file to a JSON format, right? And next, here, just using SCP, I'm copying this backup report file from the local system to the standby, right? To that temp directory. It's a small file, so it's done very quick, right? We go to that now on the temp directory on the target system, and you can see that it's there. That's what we're gonna use to restore from, right? And this is the command, right? That the Oracle Database Appliance. I restore database. We specify the report, the JSON report. We give it a unique name for the database that we want, right? For example, here DB5 Boston. If you're setting data guard, is easier than if you give it a geographical or some other notation for your name. Because remember, they could become primary or standby, so you don't want to label it standby, right? It's so that way you know which is your primary, and the role is going to be a standby. Remember that we have a backup. I'm restoring from that backup, but I'm creating and I'm going to make a live database that is the role is going to be standby. Okay, so that's what we're doing here. We give it a password. Make sure that it was successful. And here you can see all the tasks. Obviously, I mean, if you just look at the time, that was 9:49. I'm going to show you at the bottom, but you can see all the tasks that were run. See, 9:49 to 10:20, right? So it took about 31 minutes to just create a new database, make it live from a backup, right? So that's what we did. And if you list your databases in that target system, you can see, right, that we have a DB5 is configured, is live, right? We describe the database, you can see that is the standby. And now the same description with a dash J to look at the JSON. I just wanted to show you, here is the unique name, right? DB5 Boston. Right now you have to do the dash J to look at the unique name. This unique name is that you gave it to the database is what we're gonna need to set up data guard. Right? So now, this is the single command, right? Auto CLI configure data guard. Now that we have a database on the target system that is on role standby. And this is the data, right? You gotta give it the standby side, the address and the password, but also the buoy, right? Those are different. So you're gonna give it that, specify which is, then after this, right, specify which is the database that we want to configure for data guard. And once you give it that data, then this next set of items, right, if this works for you as default, right, you can just leave it like that, or you can change it, right, if you want to. So here for the demo, we left it as default. Then it's gonna go for setting up. There's about 11 steps. It's just doing all the setup. I mean, this is just going in a few seconds, but this takes maybe 10, 15 minutes max, right? And it'll establish that data guard connection. And here you can see that it finished, right? Configure data guard DB5 to DB5 Boston is completed, right? You can just go ahead and list the data guard status. You can see there is my data guard configuration. I'm on the primary, so you can see that the role, this is the primary, right? It's so right there, this is the primary. And you can also describe the data guard status with the ID, and you get this other format, right? But it's the same information. And so now the function that I wanted to show you is the switch over. Say that you need to do some maintenance task on the primary system, which is on the left. We want to switch it over to the standby system, right? This is the ID of the data guard configuration. And you can see the unique name here for the standby database is the DB5 Boston, right? So we're gonna run the switch over, give it the password, make sure that it was successful. And right, and then now you look at the data guard status, right? Notice that I'm on the left, but it's now a standby, right? This is the standby now. And if we go to the right, do the same thing. Now the right is the primary, right? So all these functions you can do with our integrated data guard, right? And this last item that I'm showing here, right, because we were doing the backup, right? We don't want the backup anymore. So this, right, modifies the database to just not do any backup. You can delete it. And now you have your 2 Oracle Database Appliance in a data guard configuration, protecting your data, right? So that was data guard. And now Paul also talked about backup, right? When you set up a maximum availability architecture, we give you with the HA model, right? It's a high availability model, 2 nodes. You can set up data guard to protect your data. In addition to that, right, you can also set up a backup. And here we just want to highlight that yes, you can run a backup to the internal FRA or to an external. In that where the external can also be another Oracle Database Appliance if you want it to be, right? It's and also the object stored in the Oracle Cloud. Now, we also have videos to show you how to set up an object store because it's too long. Well, it's becoming too long, right, to do a lot of demos. If you're interested, just let the account team know and we can get you this information?
So first thing, you should always have a backup, right, before you do anything else, right? Because that's kind of the primary availability thing in case anything really bad happens. So every customer should have backup, and I think everyone knows that. And we make it easy with ODA, right? So it's all integrated. You don't have to know the RMAN commands, right? You just point and click, right? And obviously you can do it in command line as well. So again, this is just another built-in feature that we add value to simplify your operations, right? So backups, just very basic thing, right? Okay, go to the next one, please. So this is just really to summarize, right? We talked about availability, high availability is really important for our customers. And this platform has all kinds of high availability features, right? And I just want to kind of summarize, right? For database protection, we have RAC, like in seconds, we can fail over your database and applications. RAC 1, code failover. And for standard edition, we have this new feature called standard edition high availability. Again, protecting databases for standard edition databases, right? So again, all available on the platform. And then on top of that, because it's a share everything architecture with our HA model, you also gain built-in high availability for application VMs as well. And we'll talk about application VMs in the next demo. That because everything's sitting on the shared storage, right? So we can set the application virtual machines as for auto restart or failover. So that's kind of the built-in HA features for our HA model. And then of course, Carlos just went through the integrated data guard for disaster recovery. And then of course, we have integrated backup for, backup to the inside the ODA or externally to NFS storage or to Oracle Cloud, right? So again, very important features to have your backups available in a lot of different locations. And then of course, all the built-in ASM double, triple mirroring features that are also built in, and you don't have to think about it. You don't have to set it up. When you deploy, it's there. It's all set up for you already. And then of course, I talked about all the multiple hardwares, right? Redundant hardware to protect, your disks, your storage subsystems, right? And all the other components, right? And of course, we have the ASR, the phone home capability, right? We will proactively monitor your hardware status. Let's say if you start getting some software errors on your disk drives, it will notify Oracle support before it actually fails, right? So we're trying to be proactive about monitoring hardware information. So again, as you can see, it's a very complete platform to protect your data. And that's why a lot of customers buy the HA models to run their databases on it, right? It's simple, it's optimized, and then of course, it's very affordable for our customers. Okay, so that's summarized the kind of our overall high availability features. The next topic I want to get into is our virtualization strategy and platform, right? So not only you can run database very well, you can also run application inside a virtual machine and to really maximize your investment. So let's go to the next slide to really quickly. You probably know all of this already, but just want to remind you of virtualization, right? Most of the customers do it because they want to consolidate a lot of different machines and to have better resource utilizations, right? Because in most of the IT organizations, there's a lot of inefficiencies, right? Maybe you're just using 20% of CPU or 15% of your storage, right? When you're consolidating a lot of the different systems, right, you get better utilization. And you reduce number of physical servers, so you can save space and power. That translates into again better utilization. You save more money, right? And then with that, you also have sort of the virtual machine. You can have isolations, right? Different virtual machines have different logical network, different logical storage, and so you have better isolation. And then with that, you can actually get better quality of service, right? You can prioritize based on your virtual machines, right? So these are all benefits of virtualization. And then in the ODA case, we actually can do this thing called solution in a box, right? Where you can put your application in a VM, middleware in a VM, and also database in a separate VM. So you can combine that to deliver a solution to a customer very easily. So let's go to the next slide, Carlos. Now in the ODA platform, there's some additional benefits, right? First of all, with the database in a KVM, we can allow hard partition for Oracle database licenses, right? And then, as a matter of fact, we call Oracle database in a KVM database system, and application KVM compute instance, right? The reason we're doing that is because these are the terminology used on the Oracle Cloud, right? So we're trying to be consistent in terms of approaches with the virtualization, right? That we're trying to make the experience very similar to what you would do on the Oracle Cloud, but this is on-prem on the ODA. But it's the same technology used on the cloud, right? Now for the application KVMs, it's we're treating as a black box, right? So user can put any applications in there as long as it's supported by KVM, whether it's Linux-based, Windows-based applications, right? The user manages that. ODA will manage the database system, right? The database in the KVM, okay? And it's fully integrated with ODA's infrastructure, right? So we can support with the command line, the ODA CLI commands, as well as our browser interface, and we'll see that in the demo. And we do complete life cycle management now for the application KVMs and the database KVMs, and we'll show you how we do that. So the benefits, again, it's similar to what I said earlier, kind of generically, but with ODA, KVM, what we are able to do is really provide the capacity on demand database licensing now with the database system in, or database in KVM. And then we can, again, speed up the deployment for both applications and databases now, right? Because these are virtual machines you can spin up really fast, right? And then I talked about how we can have high availability for the application KVMs through the auto restart and failover, because all the KVMs are sitting on our shared infrastructure on the HA system, right? So it's a built-in HA functionality. And then of course we can now isolate the application and database, both the workloads and the patching process now, right? When you patch a database, it doesn't affect your applications. When you patch your applications, it doesn't affect your database. And then of course, consolidating all that workload on the single system, better utilization for all your resources, right? So, okay, so now I think we're ready to show the videos. Oh, let me just, before we show the video, here are the steps, and we'll show you this in our demo video. It's very simple, right? It's for the, this is the database systems, right? So it's really just a few steps, right? Instead of you have to do everything manually, we automate this process, right? And you'll see that in the demo. You download our template, right, for the database systems, right, or database in a KVM, and you update the repository. So basically, it's just you copy the template into ODA. That's all it does. We call it update the repository. Then you use that binaries that's copied to the repository to create a DB system, right? So you create that. And then once you've done that, then you can modify, you can delete. So that's kind of the whole product, the life cycle of the DB system we'll show you. Next slide. And this is a little different for application KVMs, right? Even though the underlying technology is the same, here you have some additional things, right? That for the application KVMs, whereas on the database KVMs, we do all that for you. Here you have to do a little more. You can optionally create a CPU pool. You can also do that for the DB system, right? But if you don't do it, when you create a database or DB system, we'll do that for you automatically. But here, it's optional, but you could also create a CPU pool. So this will, provide you that quality of service I talked about, right? You can share the CPU pool, or you can have a dedicated CPU pool. And then you have to create these virtual storage, and we'll show you in the demo. Again, it's point and click, very simple. And then you create virtual network. And then here, because it is a application KVM, so you have to specify what operating system you're running, right? Whether it's the Linux ISO image to use, or a Windows operating system image to use. You have to specify how to run the operating system inside the application KVM. Then after that, you can install any applications you want, right? As long as it's supported by the KVM, and then you can then your virtual machine is basically set up, right? Then after that, you can modify and delete again to complete the KVM life cycle, and we'll show you in the demo. So Carlos, let's show them the videos.
Thank you. So the first one is going to be creating the application VM, right? And
right.
in the GUI is called computed instance, right? To keep it in line with the cloud nomenclature. So the first step is creating a CPU pool. Remember that a CPU pool will just make that KVM run on those CPUs, the cores that you specify in the CPU pool, right? So like here, we're going to create a CPU pool 1, right? Well, this is the 2, sorry, and select the type of CPU pool, specify the number of cores that you want. In this case, it's 8, and is a very fast task, right? So it's done. So you have the CPU pool, and it's there, right? The CPU pool. Yeah. Next, we come back to the computed instances, and the first step is going to be creating the VM storage. We already have this VM storage 1, so we'll create a VM storage 2, right? Specify the size that you want, specify the disk group, create it, right? And it's another fairly quick step as well, right? It's and it's done, right? Then next is we create the virtual disk, right? In this case, is this to specify the storage, the VM storage, right? The size of the disk, and again, it will be created in fairly quickly as well, right? It's here is done. And right after that, right, we go and create a virtual, well, we need to specify the virtual network. In this case, we decided to just use the default one, right? We already had a VM1, a KVM here, so we're going to create another one. So here is creating the instance. We give it a name, VM2, right? We specify the VM storage name. So here is the source installation that Paul was talking about, right? You need to specify which is the ISO image of the operating system that you're going to be installing, which is Unix in this case. The values underneath are default, right? We specify the CPU pool and what is the maximum number of vCPUs that you want for this KVM, right? Memory size as well. What is the maximum that we'll have access to or will access? And then the typical that you want it to operate at, right? 32 and 16 in this case. We specify which is the virtual disk and the virtual network. And so specify the VM disk size as well, right? And this is a very fast setup, right? To create a VM. And now you can see here the VM2, the KVM or the virtual machine for your application is created. Here you can see the image, the characteristics, right? The display port, which we're going to use in the next slide, right? It's and I mean this simple, right? To just create a application KVM. Now, in the next section, we just want to show you connecting, right, to that application KVM. Remember that this KVM is a virtual machine is just a black box for the Oracle Database Appliance. We manage it, we create it, you define the ISO image to install, but then after that, right, it's up to you, right, to manage the operating system and the application that you're going to put in there, right? So if you go to the documentation, right, managing virtual machines, we created it, but then the next step is going to be, well, how do you connect to it, right? There's a couple of options that you can see on those two bullets underneath. We're going to use an SSH tunnel, right? This is the format, and obviously we're running on a Mac, so we're using on a Mac. But if you're on Windows, you will use PuTTY, right? And so this is the format. We're going to need the local port, and I'm going to show you where that is, right? It's the local port is just a number that you assign. It's got to be greater than 1024, right? For example, you just assign 1, 2, 3, 4, 12.
And also notice the 5900, right? We're going to use that for the VNC access too. Yeah.
Exactly. And we'll come back to this once we look at the value in the KVM, right? It's and we're going to go through the steps so you can see how we set it up, right? So here we go back, we look at the VM, and so right there, right, is the port is the number 2, and right, that's the IP, and right, and that's the last part that we're gonna set up. So here, let me hide the Zoom window, right? So here we're gonna do the command SSH L define it. I call it 1, 2, 3, 3, 4 here. Remember that it's gonna be just greater than 1024. It was the 5900, but the port was 2, so we add 2 to the 5900, and the documentation here specifies it, right? The VNC port. For example, if the port is 1, then use 5901, right? Ours was 2, we use 5902. Okay, and that's what we're doing here, and then root at that IP address of the KVM, enter the password, and we're connected, right? And now we need to run VNC. We had already downloaded it, right? The VNC viewer. We run it, the way to run it, and it's in the documentation, right? We just localhost, right, 1 to the port that we created, 1, 2, 3, 3, 4, and we are connected. Right now, we are inside the KVM, ready to with Linux. Yeah,
Right.
Paul, go ahead.
So one thing I want to mention is that I don't know if you noticed when Carlos SSH into this application KVM, he used the host IP address. Okay, so now for application KVMs as well as DB systems, you should have assigned a unique IP addresses before the deployment, because at this point the application KVM does not have the network, the IP addresses assigned to it yet, right? So once you install the operating system, you have to go into the network configuration file to assign its IP addresses, right? That's how you can then from outside log into the application KVM. This is true also for the DB system. We'll show you later as well. So you have to plan these network addresses ahead of time so that you have the IP address to use for each virtual machines. You need to have assigned an IP addresses, right? So that all has to be planned ahead of time with the network administrators so that they know, okay, you have so many IP addresses and some are assigned to database KVMs and some are assigned to application KVMs. They do need to have that configured to be able to access it from outside. Yeah.
Perfect. So next, right, this is very quick just to show you, if you're going to do a DB system, right, you need to download, and depending on the model number, right, it's so here I'm showing, okay, let's go to managing DB system and creating a DB system, right? To create a DB system, you're gonna follow these steps and you're gonna see right here, right? That download a template. This is, you've got to download it and you've got to update the repository. And from that point on, you can create as many database systems as you want, right? So that's the patch number. And just quickly, right? If you just say release notes, in this case, we were doing it with 1910, right? The latest release is 1912, but you go to the release notes and look at the patches, right? Specify, in this case, the model number. And here are the patches. The link will take you straight to download it. The template is, in this case, it was all the way at the bottom, right? That's the template. You just click download, and we had already done that, obviously. Then you gotta go through the usual step and zip it, update the repository, and then, yeah, just run it, right? So we had already done that in our system. So what we're gonna show you next is just how to create that DB system. Okay, so you can see on the left-hand side, DB system. So click on the create a DB system. It's similar to when you create a appliance, right? You've got to give it the same system information, the network information, right? It specify your values, give it a password, right? It's the same user and group selection, your database information, right? It's we kept it simple here, specify the shape, all the values of your database, and right. So give it the password. And then we're creating. Right. So you get an ID. Let's look at the progress, and it is running. So in this case, it took about 40 minutes, right? Remember, they was creating the KVM, putting the Aura software and creating a database, right? So here is our DB system. In this case, it was a 1910, right? You can see here, there's a CPU pool, right? Depending on the shape that you specify, it'll create an internal CPU pool. With 1912, you can specify if you want an external CPU pool and share that pool among different DB systems, right? So we're not showing that, but it's a capability that we support. Okay, and just to show, right, it's all the different tasks that were done to create the DB system, right? So, and that's it. I mean, that's how straightforward it is to create a DB system, right? So, Paul, any final words on KVM?
Yeah. I mean, this is just show you how easy it is to create and manage the lifecycle of the VM for both application KVM and database KVM. So, so we think this will be very valuable to our customers and partners that want to have a solution in a box.
Yeah, perfect. So the final section, we wanted to just give you a demo on going to 1912. That is our latest release, and we did it from 1911. I mean, in this slide here, you can just see the overall flow of the patching, right? We give you a bundle with clones that you need to do. You update the repository, right? You update the OS, the GI, the ILM, the BIOS, right? The firmware, and then finally you get to update the databases, right? It's a simplified, straightforward patching process that we have with the Oracle Database Appliance, and so let us show you. right, the patching to 1912, and we're going to talk about some new things that that came in with 1912, right? So what we're doing here is 1911 to 1912. We want to show you two ways, right? Or yeah, one is we're going to patch the Oracle Database Appliance bare metal. On the right-hand side is a DB system. And if you notice the steps here on the bare metal, right? The first one is you're going to download those files. The second one is update the repository with the server patch. Notice that even though we downloaded 3 files, we only update the server patch first, right? Then there are these DCS items, the admin, the components, and the agent that need to be updated, right? Then after that, after the agent, and this is very important, that's when you update the repository with the GI and the database clone. And then the next steps is going to update the server, the storage component, and the database clone. But notice, right, that we want you to run a pre-check for the server. We put an asterisk there because this task, running the pre-checks, you can do it before you do the patching. If you are planning to patch, say, on a Saturday night, run this during the week, right? Just to make sure that if you have any issues, you get to fix them, to address them, okay? And here, the update database home, we have it in a little box just to highlight that it's up to you, right? Some customers don't want to update it, or maybe they want to upgrade, right? From a 12 to a 19, right? So that's why we put it in a box that to signal that is your choice.
So I do have a couple comments here too. So yeah, as Carlos said, that box, right? That's customer dependent, right? Depends on how many databases you have, whether you're doing patching or upgrade. You know, it's the amount of time takes. It's different, right? Now we're going to show you, the demo will show you all in command line, but most of those operations could be done from the graphic user interface, right? Point and click. So it's much simpler. And the other point I want to make is that you see all these pre-checks, right? These are extra steps that we're taking to make sure patching goes very smoothly, right? And that you don't get stuck in the middle of the patching, right? So we want you to fix everything before actually starting, like, update the server, right? And what we'll show you is that just a sneak preview, right? This first part, right, the update server part, you know, you basically could do it in about an hour, and we'll show you all the different steps, right? Just to show you how powerful it is that we're making the patching, you know, for the infrastructure part, right? The server is basically the firmware, operating systems, and GI, right? So those are, everyone has to do, right? And because the database is depends on the environment, but the server part, it's the part everyone goes through. So those are the points I want to make, Carlos.
Okay, thank you, Paul. And the last one is going to be enable NUMA. With 1912, it is, if you create something new, it's enabled by default. But because we're patching, and these are the older databases, KVMs, DB systems, they need to be enabled. Okay, so it's like a one time, right? After 1912, we don't do that. So let us show you those steps, right? So first, I'm just gonna let it run quickly here, right? It's this is just to let you know, right, where you go to look at the documentation, right? It's there is a patching section here that is good to read. Out of place patching is something that we released recently, and here is a listing of all the items that get updated with the server bundle. Right, RPMs, a quick note, right? Ideally, don't install anything, but if you have to, there are some rules, just read the manual. And here is the long list of the pre-checks, right? That we, as Paul mentioned, to ensure that things are gonna go smoother, right? It's, and as I mentioned, enabling NUMA, right? It's, and we're gonna show you all that, right? There's some best practices on how to minimize downtime. I'll let you read them at your own pace. And then here is the main section, right? Patching the Oracle Database Appliance. So in the next portion of the video, I'm gonna turn to screenshots of these sections here, right? Like, so you can see here the first 4 steps. They basically telling you, you gotta download these files and then unzip them, put them in the Oracle Database Appliance, and then update the repository and confirm that everything was successful, right? So we're gonna do that quick. In the video here, I put it in. This is 1912 documentation, right? So you can see where to go, where to get the files, Oracle Database Appliance files. And here is the listing of all the patches that are provided. Okay, so, and the first ones that they want to download are the top 3. So, right, so that's the server patch, the GI clone, and the database clone for 1912. Right, notice that we also give you 12.2, 12.1, 19 clones, right, to create those version databases. You don't get 18 anymore, it's out of support. And you don't get 11.2 as well, right? So it's only these versions. And the last 3 I want to highlight, because one is the KVM database system template, right? This is the one that you need to upload the repository, update the repository with, to create DB systems. And the last 2 are the 21.3 database clones, right? If you want to create a DB system with these database versions, you need to update the repository. So it's important to do that. Okay, and now we already had this file. So we're just gonna go straight to update the repository. Notice here, this is the server, right? So we describe it and it's done. I mean, that was the first 5 steps, right? This is very simple, just update the repository. The next step is the DCS components. Notice 6 is let's update the admin, and then the components. The components is gonna do different things depending on what version you're coming from. Okay, like this is a 1911, so we already have many changes that 1999, 1910 don't have, right? We're gonna update the agent, and after the agent, that's when we update the repository with the GI clone and the database clone. So I'm gonna show you that in these next steps. So here is the admin, right? You can see here, update DCS admin. And now describe it, make sure that it's successful, right? And then we're gonna update the DCS component, right? 1912. Now notice that the DCS component is not part of the agent job list, so you cannot describe the job ID. You just look here, the status, make sure that it was successful, right? Then we update the agent, right? And make sure that it was successful. I mean, this only takes a couple of minutes, right, for the agent. Then after this is when we need to update the repository with the GI clone, that it is the GI clone. You can see here on the file, GI. And at the same time, right, I'll just update the repository with the database clone. This is 1912. And now, when you go through the steps, you can just copy paste the commands. Okay, so and put them in here. Obviously, this depends on where you put in your files, right? But the rest of the commands that I'm using, you just copy paste from the documentation. Right? If I list the jobs here, you can see that the last 2 are the last 2 jobs that I ran. One of them is successful, the second one is running, or I can just describe it as well, right? That's my GI is successful, and this is my database right there, database 1912, that's successful, right? So we've updated that. And the next steps is here's where we start creating the pre-checks, right? The first one is for the server. We're gonna run the pre-check, that's number 9, verify that it was successful, that's number 10. Notice on this step 10 at the end, there is a known issue here that doesn't affect at all the installation. If this error happened, right, in the pre-check report, you just run a -F option when you update the server. You can see right here, right before step 12, update server -F, right? We didn't run into that issue. So we didn't have to run it in this demo. 11, right? It's that's when we run the update server, right? It's 12, make sure that it was successful. So in this section, right, the first step, then, well, let's clear. We're going to create the pre-patch. Notice the -s, that's for the server, and it's version 1912, right? So it runs, you get the whole command right, you get the whole command right here, right? Or CLI describe report, so you can see how it went. And I'm doing that. And it was all successful. We're gonna give you the times, okay, as to how long this takes. But so it was successful here, we didn't have any issues, right? And if we describe the component, you can describe the component, right? It'll tell you, like in this case, my system, it's already 1912, but you can see that these components here still need to be updated, which is going to be done with the update server, right? So now, after the pre-check, I'm running update server right to 1912. Okay, so this will trigger, you can see here that my system was closed. It triggered a reboot. Right after it's ready, then you log back in, describe it, and you can see all the tasks that were performed to update the server, right? And you can get an idea on the time here, 2:10 to 2:30, 36, about 26 minutes, plus 3 minutes of reboot, right? So all of that was done, right? So, and now we describe the component just to show you that the first two items that were indicated that available version was 1912 are updated. The one that remains is the database, right? Before the database, the steps tell you that you gotta run the pre-check for the storage, right? Here it tells you ST, that's the storage. So we run the pre-check, verify that it's successful, and then we update the storage components. Now, in this case, you're gonna see that it took seconds because there wasn't anything to update, but it's always a good practice. Just run it, right? Because you never know. If there isn't anything, it's going to be very fast. Like here, right? Creating the pre-patch does the ST for storage. And again, copy paste, right? So there it is successful. And now we're going to do the update storage after the pre-check, right? Here where I'm doing the update storage, describe the job, right? It's and again, you just do 6 seconds because there wasn't anything, right? So one thing that I wanted to mention, and I run this here just to show you, right? This is a 1912, but this configure DB home storage is a step that is required to go to 1911. If you are coming from an earlier version, you're gonna need to run this step. It's in the guide, right? I just didn't mention it. But here I run it to show you that we are in 1912, you run it, it'll just tell you, hey, it's already being created, right? No changes are allowed. So just wanted to show that, right? So the next steps, 17 is, okay, we need to update, to patch the existing database homes. Right, the 17A shows you update the repository, but we already did that, right? It's just a reminder. B is going to be create the pre-check. C is a known issue, right? If the pre-check shows that, then you just need to run with the F option, and then D, right, is when we do the update database home, right? So let's do that here, right? So first we list the database homes to get the ID, right? This is our 1911. And right, so here we are just running the pre-check. Make sure that everything is successful, right? It's still running here. Wait a minute. And right here, right? Just make sure that everything is successful. Fix anything if it comes up before you run the update DB home, right? So which we're doing right here at the bottom, update DB home. This is the ID, right? And I wanted to version 12, is created, describe the job, and you can see here that it's successful, right? Updating the database home. It took about 9 minutes or 7-8 minutes, right? And so at this point, right, we've updated our server, our database home, our databases, and the last step for 1912 is just to set up NUMA, right? In 19 is for your databases, and you need to connect to the database and run the SQL command to enable NUMA, right? And then on 20, if you had a DB system, VMs, or CPU pools, then we need to remap the CPU pools. We have a DB system on this one. We're going to enable it. We don't have a KVM, so we're going to ignore the last one, right? These are very fast steps, right? It's here's our database, and is a DB1, right? So we're going to connect to that DB1 and through SQL, right? And that's the command that they want us to run. You just copy paste, and we've altered, right, to enable NUMA, but we need to shut down, and then we need to start up the database to take effects, right? And it's done. I mean, it's fairly simple. Then we have CPU pools, so we need to remap the CPU pools, right? Make sure that it's successful, right? And then I'm gonna list the DB system, right? That's the one that we need to enable NUMA on. DBS1, right? Modify, enable NUMA, DBS1, verify that it's successful. And there it is, right? It's very quick. Now, if we describe the components, you'll see that everything is up to date. You notice that home 1, that's the old home. We don't delete it today. You don't need to do anything. You can leave it over there. If you want to, you can delete it. Right? That's the old home, but the new one is the home to 1912. Right? And now, if we log into the GUI on the system, right, you'll see there that is our system is 1912 already. If we look at the DB system, right, we have a DBS1. It was created with 1911, and you can see here the time that it took, right? It's about, remember that we did it on a single node. It was a small database, so for us it took about 73 minutes, right? Updating the server, updating the database, those are the longer tasks. So just ensure that you have sufficient time, and this is 73 minutes of actual running time. Obviously, there's preparation in between, right? And
hey, Carlos, we have 5 minutes left, so we probably want to speed up this last part. Yeah.
Yes, I was thinking. Well, you know what? Let's quickly just show you the right side, right? I mean, it's a very short, but that's going to be patching the DB system, right? You just well, you're going to run similar steps. I'm not going to show you that stuff. What I want to show you is at the end, right? It's running, patching a DB system is a subset of the steps on the left. And you can see, to get an idea on the time, you can see here, compare, right? It's updating the server, updating the database one is also the ones that take the most. It took us about a 50-minute, right? And
yeah, one thing to keep in mind is that when you patch the server and update the DB home, you're doing that inside the DB system, inside the virtual machine. So that's the difference, right? Compared to the bare metal, you have to log into your DB system inside the VM to do the update server and update DB home, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's our last demo. I guess I know that there were Q&As, and we've been, and the team has been answering questions.
Yes, Carlos. Actually, all the questions have been answered. There's just the last one open. Let's see if we can answer live. So the question from Charles. Can you see?
Yeah, the default servctl startup config for the standby is mount and not open. I don't. Yeah, Charles, maybe. Yeah, I need more
We'll have to
information.
check with the data guard team. Yes.
Yeah, so
No, I
Vincent,
also see.
if you know
Yeah,
the
so
information, you can get to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
I see
Paul?
someone with a hand raised. Right? Is it Jaroswal? How do we unmute that? I'm not sure if he had, his hands with a.
Yeah, no problem. So eventually reach out to me and we will get more information and we'll come back with the answer. So we have the recorded chat, so no problem at all.
Okay.
So I think in the sake of time, I would like to thank you all for being here with us in these 2 hours. We have done a lot of topics, but I think that the most common understanding is that everything is trying to be simplified from an administrative point of view. And also there is a great attention on security and attention on performance, like someone said at the beginning. So we are here to continue this journey together. So don't hesitate to contact us directly every time there is something that we can help. So with that, I would like again to thank you, Subban, Carlos, Paul, and Alex for having organized this, Mike, who is on the chat as well, and all you guys that joined this webinar and are making our Oracle Database platform so successful in the market. So thank you again. Wish you best rest of the day. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.